You've mentioned Dark Cloud. You'd like to see a remake. Outside of that, what series do you feel deserves an upgrade? A remake, a remaster, just some sort of treatment to put it back on people's radar?
Welcome back to your save point. Grab a drink, get comfortable, and let's continue on this side quest. In part 2, we imagine a cursed timeline where Square Enix has never existed and Genesis nearly became a Dark Cloud speedrunner. From demo discs to MMOs doing way too much, we're spiraling fast and Ni no Kuni somehow ends up in the middle of it. Let's get weird.
Outside of Final Fantasy games, which is probably the first game series people think of, like 90% of people think of when you mention RPGs, people jump to Final Fantasy. If I'm not even going to limit this to Final Fantasy, if Square Enix didn't exist, what do you feel would be the flagship JRPG series?
I'm choking up on it, just thinking about it. If Final Fantasy didn't exist, no, I'm kidding. Definitely just drank my water wrong, that's what happened. Like, what series would I probably gravitate towards if Final Fantasy wasn't here? Is that what you...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like a Square Enix, like if Square Enix as a developer did not exist. Because that takes out quite a few.
That eliminates quite a bit, doesn't it?
Yes.
You know what? I think I might not have been on the path I was if it wasn't for Square Enix, you know? Because I'm thinking, like, because I've played, I don't think I would have got into turn-based. I think I would have still explored the RPG genre, but I don't think I would have eventually made it to turn-based until maybe this era with, like, Persona and stuff. There's a game on the PS2 that I really like. It's called, I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Dark Cloud.
Yes.
I really, like, I have a really soft spot for that in my heart. And I think I would have I think that would have been the first RPG I would have played if it wasn't for diving into anything Square Enix related, because that was on a demo disc that came with the PS2, I think. And it was a timed demo, so essentially you could play quite a lot of the game if you knew what to do, and that's how I tackled that. And I think that's where my path would have started. So I think a game like Dark Cloud, and I think if I stuck on that route, I would have surely explored some kind of turn-based RPG eventually. But I think that would have been my go-to.
Yeah, Dark Cloud is a game that I feel is very... underrated is the wrong word, because people who know about it know its value, for lack of a better word coming to mind at the moment. But I think it's a very underexposed game. Yeah, I have a lot of time for that game. I spent quite a lot of time talking about that game with Josepha on and off episode.
It needs a remake. I'm just saying, we need to see something like it again.
And I don't know why, if it's something to do with like the art style or just the general feel of the game. I think my progression is, if I started with Dark Cloud, I would have probably moved on to games such as Ni no Kuni a hell of a lot quicker. Because that is only something I've picked up recently.
How are you finding that?
I'm enjoying it. I've started with Ni no Kuni 2, and it's got lots of elements to it. It's got the RPG element. It's got the real-time strategic battles. It's got your city building, and it's got enough content to make the game diverse enough that if you don't want to do something, you can do something else without feeling that they've tried to cram too much content into the game.
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
Which is unfortunately how I feel about MMOs in general at the moment. Is they are trying to do too much to the point where the quality of what they're doing is dropping.
I feel like that sounds like Final Fantasy XIV to me.
Yes. Like, I get it that they have a very large market to cater to, and there will be people that enjoy every single aspect of that game, even if it's not like every aspect of that game will target a different type of gamer. You've got the high tier raiding content for the people who like that. There's the PvP content. There's people that just solely do PvP. They blast through the story and then just PvP their life away. There's the crafting, gathering, all the cozy aspects that they've introduced in terms of Island Sanctuary and soon to be cosmic exploration. I'm still holding out for Blitzball. They said was coming without saying it was coming.
They're gonna do it.
So like that again, though, is I feel that it's twofold. There's so much to do. It can feel overwhelming if you're just starting or you've missed a chunk of content, or there's just so much to do. It doesn't feel like they've invested enough time in making some of those things as good as they could be.
Yeah, I agree.
Like I missed, like I tend to leave patches at a time because I mostly play that game for the story. I will blast through an expansion when it comes out, and then I'll leave a bunch of patches because I don't want to do just 5 main story quests and then come back to it in 3 months' time because I'm going to have forgotten what the fuck I did. So I will leave it as long as possible before doing the main patch quests. And I had stopped playing around the time Island Sanctuaries was introduced. And by the time I got to it, and there's all these guides on how to do, what to do, blah, 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 blah. It seemed at the time to be very overwhelming. Like, this is really complicated. I should have done this when it came out. It might have been a bit easier. And by the time I got through like the chunk of setting up the island, it's then like, well, this is now all automated and has no interest to me now because there's nothing to do. I've done it all. It's just a case of going in, pressing some menu options and leaving for 3 weeks. And there is no content value there for me. They could have done so much more.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And they could have done, even if it is, I know it's automated to make people's life easier, but the fact that you can, like, I don't know, it's really hard to explain.
No, I get it, because I've not played since I completed Dawntrail's main story. I've not gone back. I've not needed nothing's, like, I was really tempted with, I watched the latest live letter, and it's very, they've got their big scale thing coming out, and it's very Final Fantasy V based. And that's like perked my interest, but I don't think it's enough to kind of rein me back in yet, because I have consumed so much Final Fantasy XIV. Like as soon as the PS3 beta came out for it, I played all the way through to. I think I took a little break between after Stormblood, and then I went into Shadowbringers. Is it Stormblood Shadowbringers?
Yeah.
Was it? Yeah. And then obviously, like, Endwalker was great because it's like a reflection on what I'd done for the past 10 years.
Yeah.
I completely got that Dawntrail was a new story, like a new thing, and that's how I approached it. And I enjoyed Dawntrail.
Yes.
It isn't the strongest story. I get that, and some of the characters aren't relatable as much as like the Scions, etc. But I enjoyed it. What it was like, I treated it as like how they pitched it, like an island adventure kind of thing.
Yeah, I think what a lot of people forget is, yes, Dawntrail is a new story. It's a completely new chapter, and there is a host of brand new characters that people, they aren't as relatable as Alphinaud and Alisei. They weren't relatable in A Realm Reborn. It took time. We have built up that relationship with those characters over 5 expansions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for the longest time, and it is no disrespect to either of the voice actors for Alphinaud, and it is a great testament to character development. I hated him at the start. He was just a whiny douche, but the character development behind it is you grow to love the character. If you start off loving every single character, there's going to be no opportunity for character development in terms of emotional attachment at all. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people don't take that into account when they have entered this new chapter of Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I seen Dawntrail as like, there are going to be characters that I ain't going to click with because I'm literally starting off my adventure with them. Like, ask me in 3 or 4 years' time, like, if I'm going to commit to that, like I committed from A Realm Reborn to Endwalker, you're going to you need to give it time. Like, you really do. And I think a lot of people forgot that while playing Dawntrail. I think because Endwalker was such a climax, and it was also like a closing of a 10-year freaking story. That's a tough thing to follow, isn't it? It's really tough, and especially when that expansions like met with nostalgia of like and tying loose ends that were presented in Realm Reborn. That's the next thing that's going to follow. That's going to have a completely different environment, completely different characters. I think it's an unfair comparison. Like, you can't compare. You can compare it in terms of what the content is, of course. Like, and I think in some ways Dawntrail might be stronger in the content it's offering, because Endwalker, in my opinion, was all about the story, and the content was just like, yeah, it's all right. But Dawntrail, even though they're like being very slow and steady with things at the moment, I think when you look back at Dawntrail, you're going to be like, well, this offered quite a lot of content, actually. And that's probably why I'm going to go back to Dawntrail, maybe like, I don't know, maybe after the next couple of patches, just to play a bit of catch up. But yeah, I think it's just unfair to... I get the gripes, because some of the writing was a bit odd in Dawntrail. I get that, but I don't think that needs to discredit characters that we've not really got to know yet. It's like a TV series. Like, there's characters in Lost that I hated in season 1. Season 6, man, I was crying. Like, these are characters that do you know what I mean? You have to give it time. And because it's an MMO, that time has to be over. It's not going to be like you get out of a mainline Final Fantasy where you're going to get what you want after 40 hours of gameplay. Unfortunately, like, the MMO story structure doesn't work like that, I guess.
No, there are issues that I have with Dawntrail that have been touched on previously. One of them was brought up by Rin, that it takes approximately 3 to 4 hours to get into your first combat in Dawntrail. That is a long time to be... You're essentially watching a movie before you can play the game. My second issue is the hand-holding when it comes to new settlements. I detest the fact that they make you explore the settlement in quest objectives. No, let me do it how I want to in my own time.
Yeah. But look at this view. Look at the history of this. Let me tell you about this history first, and then you can...
Yeah.
It's like, no, I don't like. If I can do that, should be something optional. Like, I think.
Yeah, because like I was exploring Solution 9, after I went round, because the first thing that I do when I get to a new settlement in Final Fantasy XIV is I will go and grab every single aetheryte in that settlement.
I'm the same, yeah.
And I was looking around, and obviously there is it hadn't happened yet, but it was announced that they were doing a crossover raid series with Final Fantasy XI. We weren't aware that it was best guess estimated that Final Fantasy XI World Vanadil was going to be brought into Final Fantasy XIV lore canonically, and it has. And I was exploring around Solution 9, and I found... Have you played Final Fantasy XI?
No.
So there's a trio of Tarutarus, Lalafels, as they are now known, that appear quite a lot in Final Fantasy XI, and I think I found like an Easter egg version of them. It's not them, it's not the same character models, but it is clearly inspired by them if it is not meant to be them. And if all I did was follow that questline round, I wouldn't have found that Easter egg. And the last gripe that I have with Dawntrail, and it's surprising that they didn't do this, considering pre-Dawntrail, Krile was the poster girl for Pictomancer. She wanted to come to this new continent to find out more about her past, about her grandfather, about this letter that she's found. And then where the fuck was she?
Conveniently appeared when she needed to.
Like, Krile should have had a bigger role, much bigger role.
Yeah.
She was there to showcase Pictomancer in like the closing end of Endwalker, and then she just piped up for conversations every now and then. I feel like they could have utilized that character a hell of a lot more than they did. And those are my My 3 gripes with Dawntrail.
I've got one more.
Ooh, let's add to this list.
Random song placement, especially when you are building, well, like you're not building the train, but you are restoring the station, and it just busts out with the. Don't get me wrong, it's a bop. It's not a bad song in the right circumstance, but that was the wrong place to use that song. That was most definitely the wrong place to use it. And I think the only other time that they used it was it right at the end after everything. They used it twice. I remember that, but it was an odd placement. And I think there's a few other odd placements of music personally, like because they had a lot of original Final Fantasy IX music.
Yes.
And I felt like they may have overused that a little bit. They could have had I feel like it might have had a bit more impact if it was arranged to be like a 14 arrangement, as opposed to just we're going to play what's the theme called? It's like Garnet's. It's not Garnet's theme as such, but it's like the
Melodies of Life. That one.
Not Melodies of. It's like a. It usually plays whenever you're in Alexandria Castle. It's like a cutscene type music, but they use that far too much. They needed more music like the Tantalus lo-fi beat that they had, which was really cool. When I heard that, I was like marking out. I was like, wow, need more of this. But yeah,
I'm surprised, and if it happened, I missed it. Obviously, when they did the Ivalice raids, they brought back characters from Ivalice. Fran made an appearance, and there was connections with the 3 main characters for those raids with previous Ivalice games like Tactics and stuff. And I guess Sphene is meant to be some sort of homage to Garnet in terms of how she dresses and things. I was surprised there, like even like a silhouette of Vivi in a corner. I know Otis is an homage to Dinah. That's very clear, but there's no, other than it being Alexandria, there is no direct connection to 9 through characters. Do you think that's something they may be saving for later, or do you think this was all part of, like, they have timed this very well? We're exploring Alexandria. Final Fantasy IX's 25th anniversary is coming up this year. Boom, here's a remake, or here's all this content, here's some behind the scenes stuff. Do you think it seems like it's been intentionally placed around to take part around this 25th anniversary, and they've just made it interconnect with the story, because that story wouldn't change and the impact wouldn't change if it was just a completely separate place.
I agree. I think it seems like behind the scenes that there must have been some kind, because I think all this Final Fantasy IX stuff, if it's real, was supposed to happen a lot earlier. I think something's happened behind the scenes for it to delay it slightly, and that's why everything feels a bit off, because like the Final Fantasy VII mobile game also had like a crossover with Final Fantasy IX like last year, which also kicked off a lot of rumors. So I do think that they had a basis for 14 to interweave. I mean, it looks like from the latest live letter, I think there's a Beatrix type boss fight. I don't think that's classed as a spoiler because they literally showed it. And I think one of the dungeons is based on Alexandria Castle, like pure, kind of like as we know it. So either they had the basis and they knew that they couldn't, like, the way they structured it with all the Solution 9 stuff and the little nods, maybe they are trying to weave it into something that makes sense, like, I don't know, which we'll see in like 5 patches time, where it's like, oh, this is how the 9 stuff connects, kind of thing. I think maybe they are planting seeds, and maybe they were told while they were making Dawntrail that, hey, like, we got the 25th anniversary of Final Fantasy IX coming up. We want it on everybody's mind. What can you do? And they're like, well, we've already got this, because we know that Yoshi P has made it clear that they plan these patches, like these expansions, like years. Like they already got like the next 10 years. I think he even said they got the next 10 years planned to a certain degree, like in a.
Yeah.
So there must have been there must have been a true story to Dawntrail already that may have not had Final Fantasy IX in its pipeline, and maybe they had to interweave it in, and they've had to change things on the fly. I won't be able to say, but that's what it seems like, almost. Like, it's not shoehorned in as such, but it's definitely feeling like, okay, you related it to 9, but where's the true like connection? How is this working? And maybe that's what they're explaining in the patches. I don't know.
Yeah, so it's a confusing one.
Yeah.
So, talking of potential remakes, we've had 7, 9, potentially the worst kept secret if it is happening. Romancing Saga 2's had a remake. There's all the HD 2D remakes coming out. Dragon Quest was announced as being redone in the latest Nintendo Direct. You've mentioned Dark Cloud. You'd like to see a remake. Outside of that, what series do you feel deserves an upgrade? A remake, a remaster, just some sort of treatment to put it back on people's radar?
This is going to be a series that I've dabbled into, but I've not committed, just because of how old these games are and because there is no true modern versions of these games. And I want to say the Phantasy Star series, the 4 games, because I've played one. They did a remake for the PlayStation 2, but it was only released in Japan. I've played the translated version of that, but I've never rolled credits. They also released a enhanced version of the Master System version on Switch a couple of years ago, which has got some nice quality of life. But I hear nothing but good things about Phantasy Star, except 3. Apparently 3 is a bit not great because you can't run in that game. You can't walk fast. And it takes place over generations. But there's a lot of interesting stuff there. I like the concept of Phantasy Star because that's always been more sci-fi as opposed to fantasy. And I think that would benefit from something like I don't think it needs like a 3D remake. I think it just needs reworking into and giving it like that a HD 2D treatment, much like the Suikoden series has recently done. Like, keep the games pretty much this framework and say the same, add a few quality of life stuff, because it would be a very good excuse for me and probably a lot of others that would be interested to dive into that series, because you don't see many people talking about it except the people that have played it. I think a lot of people say that 2 and 4 are the best. Like, they are must play RPGs. And I want to play them, but I don't want to play them in the state they're in. Like, could emulate them. I could use 2 times speed, but I'm one of those people that if I can wait for an official release, then I will. So Phantasy Star's got to be my pick for a remake.
So I think a lot of people, when you say Phantasy Star, everyone just goes, Phantasy Star Online.
Yeah.
It wasn't until recently that I found out that Phantasy Star Online, it wasn't just Phantasy Star Online, but there is a series behind it. I would say it's not old enough to get a remake, but there are games newer than it that are getting remade. For the life of me, I can't work out why they remade The Last of Us. That was new enough not to need an upgrade.
Apparently, they've got another re-release in the works that's supposed to cost like $110, which sounds like a double pack of 1 and 2 remastered. So,
but my thing that I'd like to see an upgrade of would be the Golden Sun games.
Oh, yeah.
Made by Camelot. The other Camelot game that is technically an RPG that gets overlooked a lot is Mario Tennis. The handheld one, not the ones that would come out on console that are arcade games, but Mario Tennis and Mario Power Tennis for the Game Boy Color, and I think the second one might have been Game Boy Advance, I'm not entirely sure, were RPG games made by Camelot to the point where like the text boxes and sound effects were the same ones they used in Golden Sun. But yes, a Mario Tennis Power Tour Game Boy Advance game. Mario Tennis is either Game Boy or Game Boy. I'm not sure if it was exclusively Game Boy Color at that point. They are very good RPG games. If you haven't played them, it might be worth a bash.
I'll wait for those remakes. But I think it's like you say Golden Sun as well. Like, Golden Sun is something that I've wanted to try, And I've dabbled. I think I downloaded because it's available on Nintendo Switch Online, I think.
Yes, it is.
So that was my excuse to, right, I'm finally going to try this, but I didn't commit. And I know that I should, because I hear nothing, like just seeing that small reaction from you there. Like, I'm like, I need to commit, because these are highly regarded as great RPGs. And I did enjoy what I played. I think it was just falling into I ended up just playing it when I had a spare couple of days, waiting for something else. And that was a mistake on my part. But again, having enhanced ports or remakes is always a good excuse for me to really dive in.
Golden Sun had a very unique take on the summoning system. I don't know if you got far enough into it to play through that.
I don't think so.
You got these little creatures called Djinn that you could assign up to 4 to a character, and they were all elemental based. So if you had 4 earth elemental Djinn, you'd summon the biggest, baddest earth elemental summon to do a one-shot attack. Not like a one-shot kill, but like a one-shot attack, like a Final Fantasy summon, Shiva does Diamond Dust kind of deal. If you mix the combinations around, like had 2 fire, 2 earth, it would summon a completely different summon. And it was a very unique take. I mean, the obvious answer is to stack each of the 4 elements on a different character, but it wasn't all, and that would give you the most powerful elemental attack of that element, but it wasn't always the correct answer. Is a wrong tone. It wasn't always the best answer.
Yeah, there's a lot of chance to experiment.
Yeah.
I like when RPGs do that as well.
Yeah, it's things that stick out to me in RPGs is when they try something new. That was something new. The Gambit system in Final Fantasy XII, that was new. It worked so well that Dragon Age stole it. Are there features that you can think of that maybe we don't see enough in RPGs, or something you think they should try, or something they should bring back, or something that is a feature that is starting to become a bit stale that they should try and improve it in some way? We've already talked about why RPGs are probably starting to move away from turn-based, is to develop it and attract new players and appeal to the instant gratification world we are living in right now. Anything you can think of that you think could be developed or needs to be brought back because it's been left behind?
I think that more freedom to it. I think I mentioned it when you were talking about Golden Sun, is the more freedom to experiment, like to allow you to make mistakes, to learn from those mistakes. Like, I think of the materia system in Final Fantasy VII. Like, there's probably combinations that I've still not touched in that game. And I'm sure that if I was to do a playthrough, like, and mess around with those, I'd have a lot of fun doing it, because there's a lot of just stuff you can do, a lot of versatility to it. And I like when games do that. And I like when specifically turn-based RPGs do it, because it changes from just like spamming attack or spamming bolt because they're weak against lightning to something a little bit different. Like, oh, now that I've got the materia set up of, I don't know if this is a legitimate one, I'll just make it up for the sake of my point. Like 4 times cut with steel, which then allows me to like a steel add-on. So each one of those 4 attacks gives me a chance to steal. So if this enemy's only got a 10% chance steal rate, that then boosts it up to 40%. Like, just being able to do things like that. And I'll talk about Expedition 33 again, because I've had the chance to play the demo. And that does that a lot. Like, there's a lot of scenarios it presents you with in its abilities. So, for example, you use the main character and you have the chance to inflict a burn status on it. And for most people, it'll be like, oh, great, that's extra damage per turn. But what it does is, like, there's another character that will have an ability that can be enhanced if the enemy is burnt. And it makes you think, okay, I'll do that. And then this ability also does something else that might help you out with another character, or you kind of, so you think a little bit more. I like, because sometimes we can get in the frame of mind with turn-based RPGs where, again, we're just spamming the X button and just trying to get the battle done as soon as possible. But if I've got the chance to, and I think that's what Remake does so well, because you have that opportunity to pause it as well, is to just to think more and challenge your mind. But at the same time, with Expedition 33, I use it as an example because I think it's doing some things really well. They've got the button prompts for certain attacks. So not only are you spending the time to think, once you've made that decision, you then need to take the time to react. Like, okay, this is the attack I'm doing. Now there's going to be button prompts for me to do for even bonus damage. And I think that just shakes things up a bit. So experimentation, I think more games need to be more free with it. I think they should allow their games to be broken. I think they should allow for that experimentation because it creates great conversations as well.
So when you started talking about that, my initial thought went to Final Fantasy games where the job was not locked to the character.
Yeah.
If you wanted to, you could walk around with 4 warriors, but if you came across something that needed a mage, you'd be screwed. And the option when you start Final Fantasy X to have the sphere grid not locked in. So if you wanted, Auron could be a healer and Yuna could be a warrior. I agree. I think that there should be more freedom for us to play the games how we want to play them.
It also creates replay value, which I think games need more of as well. Like, there's so many games that I won't pick up, and I'm going to use Final Fantasy XVI as an example. As much as I love the story and my experience of that game, I'm probably not going to go back to it anytime soon because there's not anything. Yes, I could probably use some different abilities, but it was pretty much set in its way to have you play a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't that much because of the argument of not many RPG elements in that game. You are kind of focused on the same path. So replayability, I think, in turn-based RPGs and RPGs in general is definitely something that needs to be considered because that's what makes the conversation great. We could have both played through Final Fantasy X and we both picked the expert sphere grid, but we could share stories and I could be like, well, I had Tidus as I used haste at the beginning of every turn, and then I made Kamari use armor break, and you'd be like, well, I did this with, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'd be able to have that conversation. So I think that's what...
I think that is lacking from... I'm not even going to limit this to RPGs. I mean, Dragon's Dogma 2 came out around this time last year, March, I think it was. And no one's talking about it anymore. It was a hot topic for 3 months, and it's dropped off a cliff. Not because it's not a good game, but because once you've completed it, that's it.
Yeah.
And I know that's the case for a lot of games. I know Bethesda is beating a dead horse at this point, but Skyrim had such replayability because of how diverse it was. I know Dragon's Dogma 2, you can pick which, like, out of the 4 classes, and there's sub-classes that you can unlock, and there are a multitude of different ways you can play the game, and you can get different companions from other players. But there is not the diversity and replayability that Skyrim still has to this day. And I know a lot of that comes from modding as well, and mods that people put on their games. A lot of companies seem to not like mods, and I don't know where that mindset comes from.
I agree, like, especially because lately I've been exploring a lot of mods when it comes to Final Fantasy. And I do think companies I think they need to lean into it a bit more because everyone has an idea, will stem some kind of idea from playing a game, whether it's something to improve, something to change, something to add, something to take away. And I think that's valuable for a game. That leads into the replayability. Skyrim in this example, like, I have never rolled credits on Skyrim, but I've probably put in about 200 hours into that game, and I've probably started that game over and over again, over 50 times, just because of I want to play like this. I want to try this. Oh wait, they've added a mod where I can do this. Oh, I can have a backpack now, or like just something cosmetic. And I think the business mindset when it comes to mods, I think a lot of them just relate to, oh, well, we're going to get so many lewd mods. Like they're just scared of their characters being exposed in ways that they never envisioned. And that's a totally understandable thing to do, but I'm sure there's probably things in place that they can do to stop that and just allow the more gameplay structured mods. I don't know.
Unfortunately, in this day and age, even if it's not a mod, if someone wants to do that to one of your characters, it's just going to be fan art and it's going to be on the internet regardless. They are not going to have the power to stop that in any capacity. And Warcraft and Blizzard, and I know they're now all owned by the same company as Bethesda, but before everyone was acquired by the powerhouse that is Microsoft. Obviously, add-ons are a big part of World of Warcraft. Not all of them I agree with because they just make the game easier. But to the point where the game develops so much that the game developers go, well, we're going to take this add-on, this add-on, this add-on, and we're just going to make it part of the base game now. That they are taking improvements from the community, listening to the community and going, you know what? That's actually better than how we did it. Let's just save everyone the trouble and put it into the game. Just because a game has been made and has been finished does not mean that it is the best product that it can be.
I agree. And I think in some aspects, like games that have been carried by mods from the fans have outlasted all of these live service games. Like, I'll use Final Fantasy IX as an example. Like, if you can see how that plays on the PC right now and what you can do with that, like, even the most diehard, done everything in Final Fantasy IX fan would be like, I'm going to play again. Like, because of maybe it's a gameplay change, maybe it's a character change. I think it is quite valuable to making older games still attract new players and still keep the old fans talking about it. And I think that's really valuable because I could have mentioned the game today because of a mod and it'll be in the back of your mind and you'd want to try it. And that's doing the job of making the game want to be played by more people.
It's a tough one. Like, obviously, Bethesda integrates mods directly into their game. They allow it to be opened up to the Steam Workshop. And I think that, well, without a doubt, mods is why Skyrim is still replayable. I mean, granted, we've had 30,000 releases of it at this point.
Probably going to get another one.
100%.
Switch to Skyrim.
I mean, the fact I know it's not an official release. I mean, there's two that come to mind. One of them, I believe, might be is there that you can play Skyrim through your Alexa. Someone had also made Skyrim, a version of Skyrim, playable through Microsoft Excel. It's entirely a spreadsheet-based version of Skyrim.
That is crazy, but makes me very intrigued. Like, it's mad. Like,
if this is the sort of ingenuity and of your player base, and don't get me wrong, there's going to be ones that you're not going to want, and there's going to be people that abuse the power of mods. For the 70-80% that are good and worthwhile, why would you not want to utilize that even as just publicity for your game? I mean, I'm sure there's a reason, because it's not just like one or two developers that don't do it. It's quite a lot.
I think maybe back to the business mindset is maybe they could do it and they can package it as a DLC and make money from it. Maybe they don't see it as a money making thing, but I'm sure like if they were able to still get more, like, I'm going to buy Skyrim because I really like the mods, they're still getting a game sale. Maybe they don't look at that as a valuable thing, and maybe they think, well, we need to package it up as an expansion, and we need to like the House Essentials pack or something. Like maybe they're just too focused on we need to make money from this mindset. I don't know, but I think with Skyrim, with it being as old as it is, do they I don't know.
You just said the House Essentials pack. The Sims is another great example. Yes, they released that. They've said they're not going to make another Sims game. They're just going to keep expanding on the current iteration of it and just upgrade the game as and when they can. Yes, they release stuff kits, expansion packs, and all that sort of stuff. But they also have a lot of mods and player-given things that they allow to be directly integrated into the game. It is the same as Final Fantasy XIV. It's not a mod as such, but they take feedback from content from the community in terms of, for example, the hairstyle competitions and stuff like that. I think whilst developers obviously, if they didn't, they wouldn't exist. They appreciate and understand that it's a community that drives game sales and drives their games and makes them successful as a business and a company. But I don't think that developers lean into the community maybe as much as they could and should. One of my previous guests was the CEO of 9 Studio, company responsible for Outward, soon to be Outward 2. They have a demo out currently for a roguelike that they're making called Lost in Prayer. And just before the demo went live on Steam, he did a live stream of it on Twitch, and it is very much alpha game at the moment. Needs a lot of development before it's going to be released. But he was streaming it on Twitch, and every single piece of feedback, every single comment that was being stated during that live stream, he was writing down and taking into account. And I brought that up to him in the episode, and he said, of course, they listen to every single bit of feedback that they get from their community, from their players. And just because that piece of feedback is irrelevant for that game doesn't mean it's going to be irrelevant to the artist, to the coder, to the developer as a person, or maybe for the next game it could be useful. You don't know when that feedback is going to be useful. And one of the one of the, like, Outward in itself is a have you played it?
Outward, is that the did it come out on the Switch?
Yeah, it has come out on the Switch.
Is it like does it remind people of like Zelda, classic Zelda?
Yeah, kind of.
Are you playing as like a... So involve you wielding a saucepan? Am I thinking of the right game?
No.
Am I thinking? Oh, what am I thinking of then?
I mean, there might be a mod for it. No, so Outward is an immersive RPG game where you are playing as an adventurer. You are an adventurer. You're not the Dragonborn. You are not some sort of hero that's going to save the universe. It is a back to basics. You are a human being. You deal with it. And it is intentionally hard. There is no hand holding. There's no quest markers. The map is literally a map. You cannot see where you are on the map. You've got to figure it out by looking at landmarks and locations. And the map isn't big, but it takes time to travel. And he said one of the things they kept on getting asked for is, can we get mounts in Outward? Can we get mounts in Outward? And well, the answer is no, because it would ruin how the game is designed. And his answer to that was, well, you can't have mounts in Outward, but maybe we can then make a game Outward-ish with mounts. Just utilizing the feedback that they've got shows there's a demand there. Doesn't mean it's necessarily applicable to the game that they're feedbacking on, but it will be useful at another point in time. And like, he is, as a person, very approachable, and the Discords for 9 Studio and the games have feedback sections that they will take every single piece of feedback you give them and utilize it in some way, even if it is not implemented. And it is very rare to, maybe it's just me and I haven't found the right studios, but it's just very rare to have that sort of relationship as a player with a developer. But I also now fully recommend that you go and play Outward. It is a great game.
And that's the end of part 2. We went deep into game development, community feedback, and why some studios still haven't figured out what makes players stick around. Coming up next, the forgotten favourites, the RPGs that deserve a second chance, and one very specific plea for world maps to make a comeback. You won't want to miss it. So hit that save point, grab a drink, and we'll see you next week.